Well, hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. This is our last and final information session, and today we have the honor and privilege of having some of our current students as well as some of our alumni on the call and the panel with us today. And we'll just be going over a Q&A session with our current students as well as our alumni. And so I do want to go ahead and get started with introductions because we do have several people on the call today. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Dr. Catherine Fake. I'm the program director here at FreeNU. I oversee the Masters of Science in Nutritional Sciences and Dietetic Internship Program.
Hey, I'm Amy Serio. I am the Director of Clinical Education for the program. And any of you can jump in after us.
Hey guys, I'm Dan. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go Danny.
Danny, watch out. I'm Danny. I'm one of the alumni of the program.
Hey guys, I'm Jamie Gilbo. I am also alumni of the program, and I'm currently the clinical nutrition manager at Lord's and Women's and Children. So getting in some precepting time too.
Hey y'all, I'm Alyssa Heath. I'm also an alumni, and I am a pediatric clinical dietitian at Children's Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm Audrey. I'm a current intern. I graduated from LSU, and I'm this year's class president.
I'm Erica Carlson. I am a current intern, and I graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I am the current FNA president.
Hey y'all, I'm Shelby. I'm a current intern, and I graduated from LSU, and right now I am the class historian, so I'm the one like posting on the Instagram.
Yeah, and Shelby does a really great job posting on our social media. And Erica, she mentioned FNA, then for those of you who don't know, that is the Franciscan Nutrition Association, which is the first nutrition-specific student organization that was started by the cohort that just graduated in December. So we're really proud of all the work that they've been doing. And Danny, can you mention where you're working?
Yeah, I just realized I didn't do that. I'm a clinical dietitian at East Jefferson General Hospital in New Orleans.
And Danny, where are you originally from?
I'm from San Diego, and I went to Cal Poly too, Erica.
Yeah. So we have a variety of students from all over the place that have been attracted to FreeNU, and we have some very successful alumni on this call today. So we want to go ahead and get started. Ms. Serio and I will just kind of go back and forth asking questions to our group of students and alumni. And then, of course, at the end, our guests that are joining us today, you will have the opportunity to ask the students and alumni any questions that you have. Nothing's off the table. If there's anything that we hadn't touched on or hadn't discussed, feel free to ask them those questions, okay? So we'll go ahead and get started. And this is a question I want to ask to our current students. What attracted you to apply to FreeNU?
I can start with that one. So the top 3 reasons for me was because first, it's a joint internship and a master's program. And I knew after graduating from LSU that I wanted to get my master's. And this is a really great program for that. And since it's going to be required in 2024, I knew that I wanted to go ahead and get it. And then my second reason was because there is a wide variety of rotations. There is stuff in clinical, there's community, lots of food service. There's like everything you could dream of. Like I'm at neuromed right now. So I'm doing some things with neuro rehabilitation, which is really cool because I never thought that would have been something that a dietitian would do. And then I also was attracted to it because it's a Catholic university. I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic school my whole life. So that was a really big factor for me too.
Thank you, Audrey. So I'm going to kind of segue that into the alumni. So since Audrey mentioned we have a lot of different rotations, how do you guys feel? If one of you wants to answer, or all 3 of you, how do you guys feel those rotations have prepared you for your professional careers and the jobs maybe you're in right now?
I can go. I feel like, and yes, Amy, Our Lady of Lourdes was my favorite rotation, specifically the clinical. I liked that rotation because I felt like I was really on my own, being able to do the patients by myself. It's really, fun and Danny having a preceptor behind you, watching you cancel a patient, but it's also really nice to have that freedom to do it by yourself. And I felt like if I did my internship through a different, place, I wouldn't have had as much of that freedom. And I feel like it's definitely prepared me. Like I felt like I was good to go on my own. When I first started working, I didn't need anyone, babysitting me or anything. Training wheels were off and I was ready to go full blast on a two biker.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Danny said, I completely agree. Like we had the ability to chart on our own and do everything in the internship, and that really helped prepare me for my job. The training process for my job, they usually do like a 12-week thing. They actually only shortened it to 8 weeks because I just like kind of went right in with everything. So they were very appreciative of the program for that. And also the amount of different rotations that we got, at least I got, I think 3 different types of pediatric kind of rotations. I was in like NICU, and then also we did like one in Baton Rouge. Like we just had a lot of different types of things. So it was really nice to just get exposure to a lot of things.
Kind of going off Danny and Alyssa, I felt the same way. So when I graduated undergrad, I felt like I had all of this knowledge, but I felt an overwhelming sense of how do I apply this? Like, what do I do with all this stuff I just learned over the last 4 years? And so going to all of these rotations and seeing it live in action while also taking the classes like the clinical nutrition class and going further in depth with the knowledge really helped me feel like, okay, I'm ready. Like I have had enough of this. I'm ready to go out on my own and start working. So yeah, it kind of tied in all the puzzle pieces.
Awesome, guys. So Danny mentioned that her favorite rotation was Our Lady of Lourdes clinical. Can everybody else share what their favorite rotation was or has been so far?
I can start off on this one. So I'm currently in my clinical at Our Lady of Lourdes, and I really love it so far. It's been a really supportive environment, and all the RDs are really great. But also, I really enjoyed LSU Student Health. The preceptor, Emily, works with a lot of eating disorder patients, which wasn't something that I got a lot of experience with in undergrad. And so getting to see those motivational interviewing skills put into practice, and she does it so well, like really helped me want to work on my motivational interviewing skills, because it's really something that you can apply in all of your rotations and everywhere you go. So it's kind of a tie for me right now.
Going off of Erica, I also enjoyed LSU Student Health Center. I just finished that one. And Emily was such a great preceptor because I was able to learn so much from her, and then see eating disorder patients, because that's really not something that we had much exposure to in undergrad, like Erica said. Also, I really liked Go Get Healthy at the North Baton Rouge Clinic. It was one of the first rotations that was very community focused and kind of shifted my interest and made me consider working in a community setting and like not being so clinical that I've always like thought I wanted to do. So now I'm kind of in limbo. But Go Get Healthy was really great because they do cooking classes in the community. So you really got to like work with the community members and, see your impact. So that one was really fun.
I also kind of have 2 favorites. I did my 4 weeks at the Lake Clinical, and I loved that way more than I thought I was going to. I really liked doing tube feedings and stuff like that, which surprised me. And then I also did my rotation at Children's at the Lake in Baton Rouge, and I loved that so much. I just love the pediatric population, and that's like where my heart is, I think. But I don't know yet because I still got a long way to go. But those have been my favorites so far.
Alyssa or Jamie, you want to share what your favorite rotation was real quick?
So mine is controversial because not many people look forward to their food service management. But from working here in undergrad, I knew I loved Amy and I was excited to be back, but in a different role. And I knew that eventually where I ended up was kind of where I wanted to be. And so I really enjoyed that one.
And my favorite, I had a couple, honestly. It was hard to choose. I'm like thinking of back and in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, we had so many rotations. Probably like top three was Our Lady of Lourdes, just because every single RD was just so welcoming. And I was very intimidated of clinical at first because I didn't initially want to do clinical. So now that I'm a pediatric clinical dietitian, it's kind of ironic. And then I really liked my NICU rotation. That's also connected with Our Lady of Lourdes. It's just like across the street. And just being exposed to like how much of an impact you can really make on a child, it just blew my mind. And that's probably why I'm in pediatrics now, just because you can make such a large impact. And then my third favorite was renal, which I feel like everybody absolutely hates, but it kind of opened my eyes. I was like, I actually like clinical a lot more than I thought. So those are my three favorites.
Miss Ariel, you want to jump in and ask the next question?
Yes, I can. So let's see. Let me ask the students right now, how do you feel like it is balancing being a student plus school, having internship full time during the day? How do you balance that successfully? And I think all three of you do so.
I can start talking about this one. So my like 2 or 3 big things. One is very basic, but planning. I mean, I have a planner and I write every single thing down in it. Very like type A, detailed, plan everything out. But with that, I try to make sure that I give myself time as well, like just for myself. At least like one day out of the week, I try to not like make myself immediately come home and start doing homework. Like if I do come home to do homework after rotation, like I give myself a break, eat a snack, do laundry, whatever I need to do, go walk around, then start doing homework and get my things done. But I try to make sure there's like one day in the evening where I can like go do whatever I want to do for me and like go hang out with people and not do school. So I try to like plan to turn in assignments early and work ahead. And then that way I can give myself a break like in the middle of the week, and then on the weekend give myself a break as well, at least like one day. So planning, doing assignments ahead, and give yourself a break because you need it like mentally, or you'll just like burn out really fast.
I definitely agree with that. I would say that like time management is key. You just have to know when to do things and how to organize your time really well, because you are rotating most of the day and then you come home, and if you don't do your homework, you're like, oh no, like I have so much to do. But if you do it ahead of time and like plan accordingly and get it done before, you can kind of come home and not have to stress after a long day of doing other things and learning out at your rotation. So as long as you like just kind of plan and know when to do what and kind of come up with a schedule for the semester is kind of what I did, because most of our class assignments are due on the same day. And so I'll be like, okay, Monday, I'm going to do my MNT assignment. On Tuesday, I'm going to do my food service assignment. So just kind of like finding what works for you is the best way.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Audrey said, you have to know yourself pretty well and like know, okay, like planning out your schedule, knowing when to do work best for you. I have a non-negotiable of like staying up late to do homework. I know if I don't get adequate sleep, then I won't be my best self at my rotation the next day. So making sure to prioritize stuff for your own mental health and your own like physical health. And also like Audrey and Shelby said, planning out your whole semester. But personally, I only take it like a week or two at a time because it can be really overwhelming to look at a whole 16-week semester with rotations and assignments and get really overwhelmed and like just stress yourself out. So taking deep breaths and just prioritizing your work is really helpful.
I'm kind of curious of what the alumni would say about that. Like, do you feel like that balance and that organization has helped you professionally now?
I would say yes. The fact that, well, in my experience, like just planning out everything, I did the semester thing. I would plan everything out and write everything in my calendar. But like going into working like an actual job, it helps me prepare on like just making sure that I'm not overexerting myself at my job and I'm not like working overtime and I'm actually making time for myself. It just kind of gives you like a better idea of how to balance life in general.
I'd agree with Alyssa. It also made it seem much easier to have a full work day because I was used to full work days with objectives and homework. So compared to that, going to work and then I can go exercise or cook dinner, it's nothing. One thing I did do in internship to help balance everything, after the first semester, a lot of students have gone through a few rotations. And so talking with classmates and learning the rotations was very helpful because if I knew that it was a rotation that was labor intensive and the objectives needed to be done at home, then I knew I needed to go into the weekend to get homework done. But if it was a rotation where I'm working on objectives actively throughout the day, I knew I'd have more time to do homework at home. So that's just a little tip that I learned after the first semester. Everybody kind of knows a little bit more about what's going on, and it can help you prioritize assignments.
Yeah, I agree with what they said. I'm not going to add anything else because everything what they said was what I would say too.
Awesome. Great advice. And so we talked a lot about how you guys balance being a full-time student and a full-time intern. And if you could think back, especially our alumni, on what was like, can you think of a certain circumstance that, or like some, like your most challenging thing that you faced during your time here? And what strategies, along with what you've been saying now, kind of just piggybacking off of what you guys been saying, what strategies did you implement to help overcome that challenge? Do you think of a specific thing that happened that it was like super stressful, but how you got over it?
Danny, we unmuted at the same time, but I'll go with
You go ahead. You go ahead. You're older.
So one of my challenges was the clinical setting, even though I had worked in the hospital before coming, made me very anxious. Just like patient interactions, that sort of stuff, even the nutrition focused physical exams, it all at first seemed very overwhelming. And so I think that doing my clinical rotation at Lord's, where I knew a lot of people and the environment is, welcoming and they're very supportive, that helped. And then also creating the skills lab where we were allowed to practice those skills for a mannequin, something a little bit more friendly and get feedback from each other. That definitely helped as well.
I feel like something for me that made me anxious, and this was more in the beginning of the internship, was because I was so far away from home. I felt like I didn't have a support system. But coming to Fran U and having and making all these friends, because I was like really shoved into it. I was like forced to make all these friends with all the girls in my internship. And I think what really helped me was the support I received from Fran U. I know they like have like counseling sessions. I mean, I never used those, but I knew that they were an option for me. And also like being able to rely on the program directors and all my other internship buddies, being able to ask them questions, lean on them. It's kind of like transferred to here at work too. I'm able to lean on my coworkers and, get their input on what I should do, what my recommendations should be, what I should, do with a doctor or whatnot. So I think just the support and knowing that I have support through Fran U was very helpful.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Danny said, I was a Lafayette intern, so there was like a Baton Rouge and Lafayette, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to like see the Baton Rouge like people as often. But honestly, having lab every Friday, we get to see each other at least once a week, and we all like our cohort is still so close, and like that was definitely a fear of me going into the internship because there was only a handful of us in Lafayette. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make any friends. Like, I'm kind of worried, like there's not going to be much support, but we are great friends, and like we all kind of leaned on each other throughout the internship, asked each other questions, like did everything. So it was very helpful, and it put my mind at ease when I realized like the first couple weeks I was like, actually, we're gonna be okay. So it was really good.
Erica, do you mind if I kind of point you out too, and maybe you can make a few comments about that, just being from out of state and, you know, a different culture and acclimating?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, definitely. So like Danny, oh,
Sorry, did you say me?
I said Erica, but you can
Oh,
talk
I'm
to
so
Alyssa because
sorry.
you're also from out of state. So please, yeah. Did you say where you were originally from? I know you said where you work now, but I don't know if you said where you're from.
I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. So that like culture shock, I went to Auburn for undergrad as well. So it was kind of like I was used to culture shock, but everyone was super welcoming. Everyone in Louisiana is really great. So Erica, you can go ahead and go. Sorry.
no, it's okay. So like Danny, I'm from California, and I definitely was really worried about like being almost 2,000 miles away from home and moving to a state where I literally knew no one. Two of my roommates are also from the same undergrad, so we all moved together, but still like not having a support in the community that knows the community. And like Allison said, the culture shock was like kind of took me back when I first got here. It was definitely something to adjust to, but like she said, all of the people here are like really welcoming and friendly, and also having the cohort as a support system. During the first semester there was a hurricane, and being from California, had no idea like how to prepare for that. So luckily Dr. Fake and Mrs. Sirio and all the interns gave us a lot of tips on how to handle that and checked in on us. And so there's definitely a really tight bond between our cohort, which really has made it feel like home. And I think a big part of that, along with the Friday labs, is also through FNA. I think a big goal of mine is to have more like hangouts or just a way to facilitate that bond. So like for our November meeting, we had a Friendsgiving where we all went to Audrey's house, had a potluck. We just got to talk about the semester, kind of celebrate the end of our rotations. And so I think FNA has really been a great way to help build that bond. And we're planning on more like kind of just team building meetings in the future to help facilitate that more.
Thank you. So kind of going off of that, you guys all kind of talked about your bond with the cohort, but if anybody has anything to add about that, and then also if anybody could speak to, I know Audrey, you mentioned about, you know, the mission of FranU and that, you know, the spiritual aspect of it, you having been, you know, going to Catholic school and different things. So if anybody wants to talk about that, and if that like helps with the bonding or.
Yeah, I can kind of talk about that because I think it forms like a really special and like unique community that we have here. So I'm sure you've heard the mission a bunch of times, but it's to educate and form servant leaders of all faiths. And I really think that we're living that mission like every day out in our rotations, because we are truly serving those most in need, whether it's a patient who's sick in the hospital or if it's someone who's less fortunate than you in the community. And you always feel like no matter what you're doing, you're making a difference in somebody's life. And that's like really unique, an aspect that every rotation site that I've been to, I feel like I've made a connection with someone and been like, wow, like I really feel like I made a difference in this person's life and feel really good about that. And we also participate in like service hours and the service learning project, and that keeps us involved, and we can go volunteer with each other and have those kind of things. And overall, we just like have a lot of great opportunities to grow as servant leaders, like through serving everybody that we see in all of our rotation sites and just in the community and volunteering and stuff. So we got a lot of good things about that.
Also kind of going off of Audrey, I think it's also important to emphasize, like, you don't have to be Catholic in order to join the program. Like, I'm Catholic as well, but I know from our cohort experience, like, I think only a handful of us were Catholic. There were like even Buddhists in our cohort. Like, we had almost every faith that you could probably think of, and we all still got along, and we all still were those servant leaders at every single one of our rotations. And Fran, you really helped mold us into how we need to interact with patients and stuff, especially with like our labs on Fridays. Like, we would get really great feedback, and we're not necessarily graded on that. That feedback was just like to help us and not like grade us, which was also very helpful in my mental health state, making sure that I was doing the thing that I needed to do with patients.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank y'all. So I have like one last question, and we've talked a lot about how awesome this program is, what opportunities that this program will afford to our students, and even after they graduate, our alumni. But I know the prospective students on this call today are probably getting ready or in the middle of applying to DICAS and getting all that together, and that is a very cumbersome process. And I know our past info sessions, we've talked about, tips on applying to DICAS and things, but do you guys, since you've been through it, especially recently, what tips do you have to apply when applying to DICAS right now to the people that are listening?
I would say mostly just be yourself, especially in your personal statement and in your video. Just show who you really are and what makes you special and what makes you stand out. And yeah, just, be yourself and show them all what you're about.
Going off of Audrey about like being yourself, definitely, be your true self and be honest. Don't try to cover anything up or anything, just like be yourself, but also don't be scared to talk about yourself, because writing your personal statement and making that video can be like so awkward and cumbersome if you're not like comfortable with like, trying to sell yourself. It's not something fun. So don't be scared to, think back at what you're doing in undergrad and think of how important it is. Don't like belittle what you're doing now. So really like think about what you're doing, where you might be working or getting service hours at or whatever it might be, and see the importance in that. And then don't be scared to talk about yourself and what you've done.
Kind of going off of what Shelby said, I think one of the best pieces of advice I got during undergrad was like, don't say, oh, I'm passionate about nutrition. Write in a way that shows that you're passionate about nutrition. Highlight those experiences, highlight adversity, highlight all those things that make you, you, and why you would be valuable to this program. And also, I had people that knew me really well read my personal statement. And then I also gave it to a professor that didn't really know me very well, so that we had a discussion after it of like what she got from it, so that people who know you can give you input, but also people who don't know you can like tell you what they thought of the personal statement as well.
Would any of you alumni care to offer a tip or two?
It's been a hot minute since I've done DICAS, but I would probably say have multiple people read over everything, like check for grammatical errors. Like, those things will turn programs off, like if you have like grammatical errors or anything like that. So definitely having someone look over everything is super important. And also what Erica said, having someone that knows you really well and also someone that doesn't know you really well is very helpful.
I would say if there's something that's like bothering you, like maybe you got a bad grade, like I got a few C's in college for sure. And if you have like a bad grade or something and you want them to know like these are the reasons why I have the grade, and these are things I have done to try to improve the grade, or whatever situation you're in, if something happened, if you feel like it might reflect poorly on you, you can always address it in your personal statement. That's what I learned in undergrad. That's my 2 cents.
So one thing that I fell victim to whenever it came to personal statements, I had a very supportive undergrad class. And so we would like trade them and everybody read everybody's. And what it led to was kind of comparison syndrome for me. So there were a lot of girls with a ton of volunteer experience or girls with clinical experience already. So if you find yourself falling into that trap, just remember that your personal statement and your application is about you, and pick your 3 best points and just let them shine and try to kind of focus on what you've done and all the things you've accomplished versus, I guess, comparing to everybody else, because that can be a hard trap to get out of.
For sure, everybody's shaking their head, Jamie. So that was really great advice. I do kind of want to wrap it up and allow time for Q&As from our guests. But just the last question, this is for everybody. If you can sum up this program in like 1 or 2 words or just a very short phrase, I just want to hear from everybody what those words or that short phrase would be.
I can
Oh,
go.
go,
Oh,
Shelly. Go, Shelly.
okay. So I wrote a note because I had to like think about it for a second. So I said that it is a unique program that is challenging, but the good kind of challenging because it allows for growth and encourages growth.
My 2 words were exciting because you never know what you're gonna do in a day. Like today, for example, I went and watched a swallow study. I watched a speech therapist do a little swallow thing, and it was really cool. And I didn't know I was gonna do that today, so I was like, "Oh, that was a nice surprise." And I would also say intense because there's a lot of work, but it's good work. So
I think my 2 little phrases would be hands-on. You get a lot of hands-on experience in your rotations and in the simulation labs. And then also like very like rewarding. Like the work that you're doing is really hard, but I always at every rotation and every class, I felt like I've gotten something really valuable from it. So it's extremely rewarding to get that feedback.
For me, I would probably say like great preparation. Doing like the internship, it just prepares you so well for like the work environment, and working basically a 40-hour work week before you actually have a job is so helpful because you know how to balance everything else in your life like so much easier. And now you don't even have to do assignments when you get home. And like Jamie said earlier, you actually have time to do a whole bunch of stuff. So it's a great way to balance everything.
So for me, I guess if I had to summarize it, it felt like family members who gave me a little tough love and pushed me out of every comfort zone I ever had, just to give me the most experience I could get so that I was the most prepared when I was sent out into the workforce.
I would say it allowed for personal and professional growth. I really feel like I've matured as a person and also as a worker, as a dietitian too. I'm very prepared to handle, big girl spending, big girl purchases, whatever, and also, working in the hospital, talking to doctors, talking to nurses, not timid anymore. Do big girl stuff.
All right, well, thank you guys. So that was all the questions that we had prepared. Now we have a couple of guests on the call today. Do you guys, Helen, Mary, or Adrian, have any questions? Y'all can shoot away, ask them anything and everything that's on your mind. I know we touched on a lot of things today. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask, or you can type it in the chat.
I have a question for both the alumni and the students. So for the students, how was the transition from undergrad to the program? And then for the alumni, how was the transition from being an intern to full-time working?
that's a really good question. The transition from undergrad to the internship, it was smoother than I thought, I'll be honest. After I graduated, I kind of I'm gonna be honest with you, felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Like, I feel like I just am clueless about the real world. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But then once I started, I realized I knew more than I thought I did. I was like, okay, I'm a little bit more confident in myself. Like, once I got started, I was like, okay, I actually know that. Okay, I kind of knew that too. And then it just kind of like helps build as you go. But it's not as scary as you think.
And then for transitioning from internship to working, it was pretty much seamless. I think that the program is set up in a way that you can rotate anywhere you want. So if you discover within the program somewhere you'd like to work, at the end, you have 2 weeks of staff relief experience that you can use to kind of get your foot in the door and say, hey, it's me again. I'm here for 2 weeks for some free labor. And then that's also more weeks of training. So especially if you like clinical, by the time I started my clinical position, I already had 8 weeks of experience. And so I needed no training. I mean, I really just kind of started working. So it just depends. You have a lot of opportunities. You just have to use them to the best of your ability.
I have a question, more so towards the faculty. I was wondering if y'all had a rotation that was sports focused.
I'll answer that. Yes, we do. So we have a 2-week rotation at either UL Lafayette in the sports nutrition program or LSU sports nutrition. So those are 2-week rotations, and they're specific for sports nutrition. But like Jamie mentioned, we do have 2 weeks of professional staff experience at the end of the internship. So if you have a site that you'd want to go to, even if it's out of state or somewhere, we just have to have a heads up and get an affiliation agreement with that site. And then once we do that, you'd be able to go ahead and go there. And we've had a lot of students go to different places out of state.
Yeah, I want to piggyback. So we've had a lot of students recently interested in sports nutrition. That is a growing field. It's a really great field, exciting field to get into. And so with the professional staff experience, we've had students, and so we already have affiliation agreements with these places. So really great connections already to the Saints, to Vanderbilt, University of Texas, where else? Auburn, I believe, was one of them a student went to. So there, and then there's some I'm forgetting. Where did Jacqueline go? Stanford.
Yeah, she worked at Stanford now, but I don't know what Carolina she went to, but she went to one of the Carolinas for her sports nutrition staff experience. She said she like loved it.
Yeah, so Jacqueline was really interested. She was a former intern, graduated with Danny and them. And yeah, she did her staff experience in one of the Carolinas, and now she's the sports dietitian for Stanford. And so I think that opportunity, her experience in this internship and the experience in her staff relief at the end really helped her get the experience that she needed to land that dream job of hers. So yeah, great question. Do you guys have any other questions for our students or for us faculty? Anything that you'd like to ask that we haven't touched upon? This is our last and final Q&A.
I have a different twist to Helen's earlier question, more so towards the students. Do y'all have any tips of like making the transition easier from undergraduate to graduate?
I can answer this one. I think using the cohort above you, because they've like gone through almost the whole internship, and so they have a lot of like advice and tips for you, and so that made it really easier, that some of the advice that they gave us and heads up, and they would like discuss with us like rotations that they had been at and like things to know for that. So utilizing the cohort above you and the faculty everyone here really wants you to succeed. So if you are struggling, reaching out is a really great way to get that extra support that you need to make that transition easier if you are struggling.
I have a question for the alumni. Where did y'all do your staff relief?
I did mine with, she no longer works there. She works somewhere else now. I did it at the Metabolic Institute, connected with Our Lady of the Lake. It was really cool. It was like a bariatric center and like weight loss center. I really liked it because what was her name? Oh, Sheila. Sheila let me like talk to all the patients myself, and she would just like leave the room. It was great. Yeah, I felt like I was the dietitian, you know. So it was really cool. I would have done out of state, but I just, you know, I didn't want to spend the money to fly back to California and do something there. So, yep, it was cool.
I did my staff relief with Auburn University Student Health Center. I worked there in undergrad, like my senior year. I was on nutrition team. So my 2-week staff relief, I worked like directly with the RD, and she primarily saw like all of the eating disorder clients on campus. So I kind of helped along with that and did like a whole bunch of counseling sessions and everything. And it was honestly such a fun experience. I absolutely adore her. And I just kind of wanted to get my foot in the door with like the whole state of Alabama in general. So it was a really great way to segue into that.
So I did mine at Lourdes, specifically in clinical, because I knew where I wanted to work. So I came back here and then was later offered a job, which was partially luck, but also a lot of work. So it's very helpful if you know where you want to work to use those 2 weeks to go get your foot in the door.
And I'll comment on that because I hired Jamie when I worked there. And so, you know, from a hiring perspective or hiring manager's perspective and a preceptor perspective, I mean, I was able to see the kind of dietitian she was going to be based on the work she put out during her internship. So it was a no-brainer whenever we had an open position to hire her. So, you know, I can't overemphasize how important it is to develop those relationships with your preceptors, because they could be your future bosses. And that, you know, that's like the best advertisement you can give for yourself to be hired.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I have one last simple question. Does this program require a GRE? And if it does, what's the score?
We do not require a GRE anymore.
Okay,
We used to, we removed that requirement last year. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I think this was a really great conversation, and I think we learned a lot about you all and how you've gone through this program or are going through this program, and how this program has really helped you become the dietitian or the future dietitian that you're meant to be. And I really appreciate all of you coming here and taking the time out of your busy day to talk to us and to share your knowledge and experience with the program. And so if anybody on the call today are listening to the recording afterwards, please feel free to reach out to Ms. Serio or I if you have any questions, and we hopefully will look forward to seeing your application in DICAS on February 15th. So make sure you get those applications in.
Yeah, best of luck on that.